And somebody said to me, follow the energy, follow the energy. If it energizes you and it lifts you higher, then that's the path to go. And that was the greatest thing anybody ever said to me, because this takes so much work, but honestly, I'm pulled to it.
Welcome to Roots of Healing, the podcast where we uncover the stories, insights, and ideas shaping the future of lifestyle and integrative medicine. I'm your host, Dr. Siri Chand Khalsa, a physician and advocate for holistic healing and embodied living. Before we begin, please take note this podcast is for educational and informational purposes only. The views expressed by our guests are their own. We're not sharing medical advice. Please consult with your healthcare provider for personal medical concerns. Every week, I have the privilege of sitting down with trailblazers and thought leaders who are reimagining what it means to heal mind, body, and spirit. Together, we're exploring their journeys, innovative approaches to their careers, and the deeper roots of healing that many of us may not have thought of before. Dr. Stacey Funt is a practicing physician, health coach, and founder of LH Adventure Travel, where she curates and leads women's global wellness travel adventures in breathtaking natural settings and diverse cultures. And I can attest to that because I've seen her incredible photos from her trips. She also designs private, group, and couples trips. Each itinerary is rooted in the principles of lifestyle medicine, incorporating movement, nourishment, relaxation, and community to promote well-being and meaningful connection. Dr. Funt has lectured nationally on physician well-being and self-care and has led workshops for healthcare professionals and the public. Her travel writing has been featured in Medscape, Go World Travel Magazine, and other publications to come. Through her work, she helps people reconnect with themselves, embrace adventure, and experience the joy and healing power of travel. Dr. Funt, wow, and welcome to the podcast.
I am so happy to be here. Thank you.
So I have to say to our listeners, I've been in this incredible good luck of having keyed into Dr. Funt's beautiful travels about, and I'm going to call you Stacey, if that's okay. I have been enjoying her travel logs now for the better part of a year. Tell us a little bit about that moment when you first had the idea to start this adventure travel business. What was happening in your life, and what was that moment like when you first thought, wow, travel business, huh?
I wouldn't say it was a moment. It was a moment when I finally decided to go for it. But the idea culminated over quite a bit of time. I mean, I have always been a traveler my entire adult life. I was the one who took off to Africa with the Lonely Planet guide before there was the internet, all by myself with my backpack, during my residency, like that, right after my residency. That was always who I was. And I became a health coach like around 14 years ago or so. I started to have the idea, wouldn't it be cool to combine it? Because the things I love to do when I travel really incorporate a lot of the aspects of lifestyle medicine. But it wasn't a light bulb that went off all of a sudden. I had the idea, and then I just wasn't sure. And then I didn't know how I'd be at it, if I would it started to percolate. And then I took some people on. I just planned for some distant friends and did it that way. And, I slowly eased into it. I did plan one trip with someone. I made that just for women physicians to design in a spa, but that we ended up canceling because of COVID. And so it was just in the background for quite a while, and the message was kind of getting louder and louder. But my kids were in high school. I have twins, and I got sidetracked with them. And then the big aha moment came after my kids left for school. And I shared this story, so I'll do this briefly, but my kids both left for college. We were new empty nesters. And right before they left, my father-in-law died. And a month after they left, my father died. And it was just a time of very deep grief. And I was about to turn the age. My mother died. My mother died young. So it was all this like mortality and grief and a big change in life. And so I just decided to go to Nepal. I had a calling. I had to go walk in the mountains in Nepal. And my husband came with me. And it was there on the flight home that I had the big knowing. I had the big knowing that as soon as this plane lands, I'm starting the process. and I'm going to go for it. So the whole concept took a while to evolve, but that final yes, was a moment.
It's amazing how these really new chapters in our careers as physicians, sometimes they start as a whisper, and eventually there's just that moment where we take action and we say, I'm ready to make a decision, like getting a bank account or an LLC, or telling someone that I do this thing, which may feel a little awkward or unusual. Tell us a little bit about your medical career. What's your specialty?
Radiology.
Radiology. And do you have a focus in radiology?
Yeah, so I'm trained body imager. So I used to be at Sloan Kettering, where I did gynecological oncology. And then I went to a community health center, and where I do mainly CT scans of the abdomen and pelvis.
So this feels like a really interesting other expression of work as a healer and in medicine, if you will. I mean, obviously you're not functioning as a clinician on these trips, but healing energy is inevitably present, I imagine.
Definitely. And it's very different. I chose radiology, so I'm not a clinician and I don't have direct patient care. I used to have more patient contact than I do now. Now it's extremely limited. And I feel personally more directly of service to people in the role as tour operator than I do in my role as radiologist, because I'm impacting people so much and I'm working with them so much and I'm seeing their transformation and I'm facilitating their experience, and it's greatly rewarding.
I think it must have been really special when that first trip kind of came together. Can you think back to how it felt? Was it a combination of exhaustion, elation, vulnerability? What were the feelings after that first trip?
Well, there were so many different feelings. I've never experienced so many different feelings. Well, I guess being a parent, but second to that, this really evoked so many different feelings. So I came home and I made the decision, and that was a leap of faith. I had to lay out money. I had to learn legal aspects. It was a big thing of faith. I had to put down non-refundable deposits. And I do have a favorite quote. I may mix it up right now, but it's Mary Oliver. Tell me, what will you do with your one wild and precious life? Or, something like that. And that propels me, that quote. And I was about to turn the age my mother died, right? So I was 58, about to turn 59. She died at 59. So I didn't realize what an impact that would have on me, by the way, which is a whole nother conversation. It had a huge impact on me. I didn't even realize until I passed that age, all of a sudden those feelings had moved on. It was very, very interesting. But so I made that decision, and it was so much to learn, from learning how to create tours and learning about Morocco. I decided Morocco would be my first one. And then social media and all of it. So I put all of it together and I announced it to the world. I released it on social media. I got everything ready. I was a health coach already, so I had an LLC. I transitioned it to travel, like letting go of big things. So the day came when I released the trip and I announced to the world, I'm putting out this trip. And I pressed the button. And then seriously, about 10 minutes later, I felt like I was going to be ill. I'm not kidding. Like, I feel like I was going to vomit. I never had that. Now I understand. I watch Brene Brown sometimes, and she talks about the vulnerability attack. And that's exactly what it was. It was this severe vulnerability attack of, I'm showing the world I'm doing something different. Medicine is a highly respected field, right? My whole life, I've received accolades and automatic respect. And I felt like I had to continue a certain level of personal behavior and present myself in a certain way to the general public as a physician. And this was so different from that. And I felt really scared. Would people not respect me? Would people think I didn't deserve to be a doctor anymore? Would people not want to go? Would no one want to join me? It really brought up so many scary feelings, but there was a bigger part of me that knew I had to try. If it failed, I'd lick my wounds and I would go on to the next thing. I lose some time and some money, and I could deal with both of that. And I had to try it. So it was very scary, and it did go. It went great and ended up selling out that first trip. And I had never done this before. So would I say it was all roses? And no, the guests had an amazing time. And that was my number one goal. And I was so happy for that. I had a lot to learn about being a tour operator. And I used to think I was responsible for their experience. And now I learn I'm responsible for their opportunity to have the experience, and that's a big difference for me. And so it was stressful. Oh, also, I planned this big trip to Morocco, having never been there. Now I go in advanced research, but there was a major earthquake 3 weeks before the trip. So, a lot of people were canceling, but I felt very committed to the people where we were going. Our hike was the epicenter of the earthquake.
What are
But
the
then,
odds? Oh my
so
goodness.
I rerouted the whole trip. It was just like all this last minute stuff, but I had to I just knew this was the right thing to do. We were going to go, and the trip was amazing. But logistically, driving times were different than they told me. Everything was a last minute switch. So my guests were great and they loved it, and everybody gave it amazing reviews. I was very stressed during that trip, learning how to do everything with a trip that kind of changed on the fly like that.
My goodness.
It was an amazing, amazing learning opportunity for me. Every trip since then has been much easier. And I learned many personal lessons about leading groups and boundaries and self-care and resilience and, all those kind of things.
It sounds like in a lot of ways you've been showing up for I always call it sort of like the whisper, the whisper from the inner world, the whisper from maybe one might say the soul or the higher self. And sometimes in medicine, I'd be curious what you think if radiologists are a little bit different because of all the solitude that can happen. I mean, I don't know. This is a purely speculative question. If you're in the day-to-day clinical roles, you're really isn't much quiet in your day. Do you think that there's a quality for radiologists that gives a little space for introspection, or is it busy enough that you really, I'm just curious, it may just be even unique to you.
Yeah, I mean, I can only speak from my own experience. And I think there are different kinds of people who go into radiology. I chose it before when I chose it, somebody told me about this thing called the internet. I'm like, that's not going to go anywhere. So
Oh,
there
wow.
was no, when I chose it, radiology was a member of a team and it was a very interactive
Yeah.
thing. But some people choose it today because they don't, they prefer to be more solo. But it's a highly cognitive field. And there are different aspects of reading films. The first is visual, making the diagnosis, and then you formulate the report and you dictate. And it's cognitively very engaging. So even though you're not speaking out loud, we read at a quick volume and
Yeah.
it's
There's a
not
lot of work to get done in a day.
your life. It is an interesting field though, because everybody's brain works a little bit differently. And during that first phase of reading films, my brain can chatter in the background. It's not soul searching introspection. It could be like whining, complaining, upsetting.
Yeah.
It's a very interesting field that uses different parts of your brain during different parts of the process. But I think it is a very busy field and radiologists are very intensely working. So I don't, even though it's a different type of work and you don't have that outward, although of course mammographer, it depends on the kind, interventional radiologist, but the typical like me, where you're in a room alone, I don't think there's space. It's like get through the list and read the next case and call that emergency finding and.
I'm curious then, where did you first notice? Do you have a certain wellness practice, or was it just in the whispers in the morning and in the evening, or was it just that intensity of the grief and losses and transitions that suddenly life was more open? Where do you think the idea for this started to have room to grow in?
I think we all have a creative center, all of us. And I think we're always getting messages from that. I often hear it in the shower, when I'm driving in the car. Sometimes I meditate. I try to have a meditative process. I would love to say I meditate every day routinely. That's my goal. I don't. But I just constantly have ideas. They do come to me, usually in the
I
car or
love
the
it.
shower. I would say we're probably the two biggest. And when the same idea keeps coming, and think all of us know, when we feel fulfilled and we feel like we're living our authentic, aligned path. And when something feels a little missing, I think we all know that. And life is a balance. And maybe there's always something a little missing, but that's okay because it's balanced by other things. And you can get it through joy's other way. And for me, raising my children was a huge creative outlet for me and a huge area to put my heart and my energy. I loved almost everything about being a mom. Really, I was an older mom. I didn't expect it to happen. I had natural twins. I got married later. I feel like it was that and my husband were the two biggest gifts the universe has given me. And I loved it very much. Everything from cooking and reading and painting with them. And there were so many areas for creativity. And when they left for college, that was my creative outlet that also left, because even though I'm still very connected to my children, there's no more active mothering. I don't create ghosts out of bananas for Halloween anymore. And I wasn't doing those things. And I think what really did it for me, that I finally went for it, is that it felt so out of balance then. After I lost that, then my being felt so out of balance. And I think the grief accentuated that, And then when I went to Nepal, I spent hours walking in the Annapurna region, in the mountains, surrounded by this majestic, it was a spiritual, just the whole trip was a spiritual experience, and then going to the crematorium and learning about the Hindu thoughts about death and dying and the body. And it just opened up all this, the grief lifted a little bit and it opened up all this space for me to see what was missing. And for me, what was missing was a place to put my energy and my heart and my creativity and my passion. And I'm deeply grateful for radiology. I still do radiology. It serves an important part of my life and I do it the best I can. I don't get to use those things in radiology. We're multifaceted people with multifaceted lives.
Mm-hmm.
And being a part-time radiologist, and a part-time mom were great. Then when the kids left, there was the imbalance. And this idea had been brewing for quite some time. And, when the pain outweighs the comfort, you make a change. And so, in Kathmandu at the airport, I turned to my husband. I said, it's time. I'm going to do this. You okay with that? Because I'm going to leave him at times, although we're starting to do couples trips now because he's about to retire. And he was nothing but supportive. He's like, I want you to live your best life. And it's a lot of work. It's so much more work than I ever anticipated, but I feel so engaged and so much alive. I'm really, really grateful for the opportunity to be able to do something else. I didn't know if I'd have that.
Yeah. And I think there's nothing quite like appreciating that perhaps our time here at a really deep level is finite, and what are the ways in which we want to live this one precious life? What is make our soul come to life, or our spirit, or our inner being, our inner world come even more to life? And that joy is our birthright, even in these complicated times.
Yeah.
I appreciate so much how much joy you bring into these trips. I see it on hearing you talk about them, but I also see it in the photographs, and I really love seeing them. I hope someday I'm able to accompany you. We've talked about a little bit because my COVID complications make long airline flights sometimes a little harder, but I'm getting better. So we'll see. So one of the things that's kind of in the introduction, if you will, is this LH adventure travel, if you will, is a notion of the fact that you did training as a health coach. Was there a point in your career where you thought you might do health coaching specifically, or was it initially maybe just an inner journey for yourself?
I was seeking what else to do. Yes, this was about 14 years ago. And I saw then I needed some other things. And I've always been a seeker. I was a psych major in college. This is, I've always been on this path. And when my son was young, they thought he had ADHD. And for us, I would have done medication if all else failed, but we went gluten, dairy free, cut out all artificial ingredients, and it was transformative for him. I knew nothing about it at the time. This was before gluten-free was such a
Mm-hmm.
popular thing. And that opened my mind to a lot of different things about medicine. It was nothing I had learned in my training and had such effect in our family and my son's life. So that just opened up my life to more integrative and natural philosophies. And so I thought this was actually a whole nother chapter with the corporatization of healthcare, right? This is when my hospital was being outsourced, things were being changed. I ran medical education. I was building the cancer. I was doing all these fun, creative projects, and that was no longer reimbursable events. So medicine was then changing. Again, at that point, I feel like we're always shifting, right? So I saw the need for a shift there because those skills I wasn't going to be able to use in that capacity anymore. So I actually went to a career coach at that point and I did all the testing, thinking about what I could do. And I came out with health coaching. I kind of knew for me, I didn't want to do one-on-one health coaching, just but I knew that was the direction. It was all the stuff that spoke to me personally. It was all the stuff I believed in very much. And I thought, well, let me just go in that direction and see where I go from there. So I did all the training. I got certified. I started doing some health coaching, but I found I enjoyed groups more. And that's why I started doing the lecturing. And that was really fun. I gave grand rounds on environmental toxins and I got really into it. I got a teaching position at Stony Brook in their primary care department and working in their lifestyle medicine selective. And, so I started doing a lot of those things. And that was really fun for a while. I did that actually for quite a few years. And then when COVID hit, I didn't want to lecture in person anymore during that. I was kind of tired of teaching and speaking. I wanted experiential.
Mm-hmm.
For me, I knew it was time to move into the fully experiential. And that's when it was just a perfect marriage of the two to do wellness adventure trips.
I love that. And I think one of the things that's so interesting to me is the 6 pillars of lifestyle medicine, which I'll run through briefly, are removing toxic substances, plant forward diet, restorative sleep. I always get lost somewhere here. A movement, regular routine, daily movement. What am I leaving out?
Stress management and connect.
Stress management and community. And I think that interestingly, how travel can bring probably all of those elements into play.
Yeah.
And that your health coaching and your wellness, interests and background really create perhaps a different experience. Do you often get people who come on the trips reflect that they hadn't thought to approach a trip like in a similar way, not just the community piece, but the movement, the hiking, the food, how the particular spaces are chosen for their elevating elements? What do you get generally a response where people are saying, wow, I hadn't really thought about how travel could actually be a healing adventure?
Well, I think that people who are drawn to my trips are looking for an active vacation. It's moderate, it's nothing crazy. Now you could do a backroads trip. I guess it's similar to that in a way, although then we stay at a spa and we have massage time. So I think that people who are drawn to it are people that either do this or want to do this in their own life. So it's something that they're kind of seeking. I don't talk about sleep and I don't talk about substance only because sometimes we're doing overnight flights and they might be a little jet lagged and, things like that. But I think I've had some amazing experiences of guests on my trip, women who have really made a big transformation in their life and their own self-care. I had this one woman who signed up for a trip and she cried at the Zoom. I Zoom with everyone before they come just to make sure it's the right fit and, it's a good match for them. And she had been taking care of everyone. She had gained a lot of weight. She was working hard. She had no time for herself. And this was like a statement to the universe. It was now her time. And it was about 8 months later that we actually went on the trip. And she had lost 50 pounds. I couldn't believe it. And so now she's about to come on another one of my trips. So we have like a live Zoom meeting, with the whole group, and she just looks gorgeous. And I see her beaming and I'm just so excited. So some people are drawn not because they do it, because they want to do that. It gives them the opportunity where everything's taken care of for them, You do not have to be vegetarian on my trips. There are vegetarian options always, but you can do whatever you want. But it's been really fun to watch people's experience of the whole thing and how they say they feel at the end. It's been really rewarding.
I think it seems like there's probably been multiple, we'll call them breakthroughs. And I think in part, some of that is the conscientious nature that you bring to the planning to create we'll say container, if you will, like not that any of your trips are plant medicine oriented, but there is this incredible experience that's out of their ordinary day to day. Do you think there's something at a neurobiological level that these new neural networks are created when we're out of our routine? Have you?
I do. I mean, there's so much to say about that. And I was talking about this just recently with someone. I feel like when we go on a new adventure, we're completely mindful. It's like a moving meditation because we're seeing things for the first time in a new way or experiencing something entirely new. So we're so present. And when you're really paying attention and you're really present, there's all this opportunity for new growth, and new exploration and new connections to be made rather than, a lot of times we're kind of on the hamster wheel and we're just in our rote routines. But when we step out of that, it gives us a whole new chance to break habits or have new thoughts or introspect in a way that we haven't before, so I think that allows for a lot. And, I'm excited to do the couples trips with my husband. I am. There's something very magical about a woman's group, right? And I really, and again, I think it's the women who are drawn, and I stress to everybody on Zoom, we form a community and we're a no judgment zone. Like if we're hiking, I have all different levels. You could be the fastest, the slowest. You could wear the same clothes every day and no makeup. You could dress to the nines, like whatever you are. And the women who come are just amazing. And I feel like they're so supportive. So it's not even just being in a new environment. I think it's just having someone hold space for you and being seen for who you are and supported in a way that you can kind of let down your guards.
Mm-hmm.
It's like talking to the stranger on the plane next to you. You feel more comfortable, and I feel like sometimes women are like that. They just form such wonderful bonds. Like it depends on the trip. Sometimes have come alone. Sometimes, it all depends. Sometimes people come with a friend. Sometimes they come alone. But I think when we feel welcomed and when we feel supported and when we feel safe, a lot of magic can happen.
That's so beautiful. Do you think that just the beauty and the nature also is a transforming element? Like sort
Yeah.
of, there was a study, and gosh, our time's going so fast. Oh my goodness. I just looked at the clock. It's flying by. I have so many things to ask you. There was a study I looked at recently that was really fascinating to me that looked at the biologic outcome of cultivating awe, all favorable, as we might imagine, particularly around mitigating stress response.
Mm-hmm.
And as an integrative physician and someone who's had my own very complicated healing process, I've come in a really roundabout way to appreciate the incredible negative impact of stress and sort of looped thinking and looped beliefs. And cultivating awe is not something we really talk about. But in some of these environments that you're taking people, Tuscany, Morocco, and I'm have you talk about all the trips here in a second, Guatemala, I imagine that awe emerges. You don't even have to mention to them, hey, it'd be cool if you cultivated awe of nature on this trip. And I'm curious if had you thought about that concretely, or is that something you're just sort of, oh, wow, this is yet another added benefit of how all these experiences are coming together?
I mean, I specifically look for awe-inspiring natural settings. I mean, that's when I pick it, like I'm starting a trip to Andalusia. I just came back from researching that. Or like my Tuscany trip, it was originally going to be another destination. And then when I went there to research it, the Cinque Terre became so overrun you couldn't even experience the beauty of this. Like, I didn't sense that. And I was going to cancel Italy altogether until I went to the Val d'Orcia, and that did it for me. But there's a lot written on forest bathing, right? So we know a lot of this. For me personally, the natural settings, the mountains and these beautiful, this is my sanctuary. This is my temple. This is where my soul goes to connect with the divine. That's what it is. When we're in Morocco and we're in that luxury, in that tent in the middle of the Sahara, and we're spending the night, and we have the drums and the fire, and then afterwards we go out to the sand dunes and we just lay in the sand dunes looking at the night sky, you just feel connected to the universe. You feel that deep, deep, deep connection. And nothing needs to be said. Nothing needs to be planned. Everybody experiences that in their own way. But I think everyone experiences it, and that's why they love it so much.
That's incredible.
Yeah.
I think of awe as like a full body exhale. Like,
I love it.
awe just sort of goes, wow, this ability to have awe. And I love that there's actual physiologic data, like decreases cortisol, decreases markers of inflammation, increased heart rate variability. Like, there are these features that seem to be really favorable that come from cultivating awe. And I love how intentional you've been in that. So tell us, so you alluded to, but let's go through, what are the current trips that you have and what is coming? So if people are listening,
I don't know when this is going to air. So
yeah, it'll air soonish.
Okay, so if it's soonish, in a month, I'm taking a group to Peru.
Okay.
And that's an absolutely incredible trip, because that whole country is so nature-based. We have a lot of connection with the indigenous culture there, and they're just rooted in a nature-based history. So that's a fascinating experience there. So we have Peru in a month, and then I have Tuscany in 2 months. We just have one night in Florence, and then we're out in the country, and we're e-biking all over Chianti and Val d'Orcia, and we have a cooking class and olive oil tasting and, thermal baths, the whole thing. And then in October, I have Morocco again. And then I have Guatemala. I have a women's trip to Guatemala in February, and a couples trip in March. And there it's beautiful. We stay in Antigua, and we stay in a gorgeous spa resort as our base. But then we have a day trip to hike a volcano. We have a day trip to Lake Atitlan, where we kayak on the lake, and then we visit the medicinal herbal garden. I mean, it's so fascinating to see all the natural health in these places, and the bee center and all of that. And then I have a new trip starting in September of 2026. I just finished planning. I'll be opening that up soon, and that's to Andalusia. So we'll start in Seville, and then we'll go to Ronda and the whitewashed villages and do hiking around there, and then end in Granada, which Alhambra is an awe-inspiring man-made place or people-made place, so, often for me, awe comes from nature, but there are certain man-made places as well, and Alhambra is one of them. Yeah. It's
stunning,
spectacular. So that's there's more ideas on the horizon, but those are the concrete ones now.
Tell me, how do you go about planning a new trip? So I know that each of the first 4 you mentioned, you've done at least 1 or 2 times now, some more than that. And this new trip, you go first, you kind of do a scouting mission. I love if I may, the tax implications of travel in this way. Brilliant, I might add, a wonderful resource of ingenuity there. And I'm curious, do you make an itinerary? Do you wander? Do you leave a lot of extra time for conversations with people locally?
So a research trip is not quite the same as just a vacation,
Sure.
Because I'm going to 6 different, I'm going all over. But for Spain, I've been a traveler my whole life. So besides Morocco, I've been to every place. Now I'm just doing it again, because planning for a group is a very different eye than independent or a solo or a small group travel. But when I decide on a place, I'm thinking now of, possibly Japan, or I'm contemplating a few different places right now. When I start to have the idea, I start to do research on what an itinerary could potentially look like. And then if I decide to do a place, then I start reaching out to local operators and local partners on the ground, because I like to meet them. And so like Spain took I'd say it took like about 6 months of a lot of planning before I went, deciding where I want to go, what I want to look at, and who I want to meet. And then when I go there, then I go through that whole process. And I may not always be able to go in advance to every trip, but so far I'm so glad I have, because it's changed dramatically the trip I end up planning, going there and experience it for myself and seeing, I don't want to spend so much time here. I do there because you could work with local companies there, but everybody has their own idea. And, I try to make these trips exactly how I want to go on, and then whoever wants to join will join. So it's a whole process. And then afterwards, then I, have to email and it's bits and pieces, putting it all together. Then you have to see if you can get the hotels, and then, so it's kind of putting all the pieces together. But when an itinerary is finished, I kind of, it's almost like a piece of artwork, I think. I'm not artistic at all, but this is really my creative outlet. When it's done, I kind of know it's done. Mm-hmm. I just get to a point because I can play with it forever. Many of us have a similar personality type in medicine, but when it's done, I just know this is the way it's supposed to be, and this is what we're going to do now. And then after the first trip, I may tweak it a little, or, there's little tweaks after the second or the third time there.
It makes sense. And I love the fact that you are very studious in how these trips come to pass. It's not just, hey, I had a great vacation there. Why don't you come? Because I always tell this story with a grain of salt, but I loved solo travel and I did it for decades. And I had, at one point in time, I had probably like you, a very powerful solo travel trip. And then I said, well, surely I can just bring a group and do the same thing. Oh my gosh, did I learn that is not the case. That, in fact, that people travel really differently. And for people that are sort of seasoned travelers who like to travel, I think one thing that, and I'd love to hear your ideas about this too, one thing that makes travel so fun is you learn to just roll with it. Well, that didn't come to pass, but what's the other adventure, right? I'm curious about what that transition felt like to go from solo traveler to curating an experience and recognizing, like you said, some people want to be up with dawn and get ready for the day and have makeup on and pressed ironed clothes, and that's their vision of traveling. And another person, it's about sleeping in, having been out the night before, staring at the stars or whatever. Right. And yet a third person is sort of just trying to escape something miserable at home. And when they come on the trip and they finally relax, there's a lot of feelings that need processing. Like, how do you hold all of that?
Yeah, so
I had no idea going into a group trip.
Because everybody does have their own style of travel. And, it's really helpful if you know your own style. So first of all, I build into the itinerary a lot of flexibility. Guatemala is my easiest trip because we stay in one place the whole time. Morocco is actually the most challenging logistically because we're on the move so much. It's a big country with poor transportation infrastructure. So that becomes more hard. But I try to leave as much space as I can so that if you want to lay by the pool and read the book all day, or somebody else, that there could be some variability in that. So I'm very mindful that people do have different styles, but that is why I don't have a join now button. That's why we Zoom. And I think it's really important for somebody to understand what the trip is, make sure it resonates with their style. And I have a checklist of things I go through. And one of them is the word you used, resilience. Sometimes I have very seasoned travelers on my trips, or sometimes I have people who've never been out of the country before. And, I explain, although this is really well planned, inevitably something's going to change. A tire gets flat, something's going to change. And I'm there to try to help roll with it. But we go with an air of resilience, and we're just there to have the experience. It's worked out really well, I think, because we have these conversations beforehand, to kind of level expectations and and hopefully make people feel very comfortable and supported. And if it's not the right itinerary for them, I'm really happy to recommend other places or just say it was so nice to chat. Like I have zero pressure on my call whatsoever because it's, it's attraction. It's not promotion. So it's worked out really well. But I think all of us have had vacations where we just realized they're not traveling the way I want to, and so it is, I feel like travel, it uses two of our biggest things, right? It uses our money and it uses our time, and especially our time. We get so little of it off sometimes, and you invest in this whole thing, and so much excitement leads up to a trip that, you want the best possibility for this incredible experience as you can. So I think it's really important to get a sense of how you want to travel and is this going to be okay for me? This is adventure travel. So if somebody doesn't want to move, Guatemala is a little different because that one you can just stay by the pool more, but you have to want to be with other people. You have to want to have community. We have our dinners together. We have group conversation. As a coach, I have certain things that I introduce in dinner and certain things that I do with everyone that they enjoy, but you have to want that. If you want to be more solitude and take your time and, then that wouldn't be the adventure.
Right. I love how I think, one of the things that just as an aside for people that are, for anyone who's listening who might be developing a business model or an offer, if you will, sometimes it can feel very limiting to create really clear parameters like, oh, shouldn't this be available for everyone? But then you realize like the spirit of your business, the intentionality of your business isn't rooted in a luxury travel person who wants to be in a really different travel zone. And I think this is a beautiful analogy of just business development in general, because you're clear in who the ideal participant in would be, and it's not even a container that limits a tremendous amount of people, but it's clear if this is how you think that you want an international trip to look like. That's not what we're doing here. And I imagine that really isn't foolproof, but it does really help curate expectations and intentionality and guides outcomes for people, that leaves them excited for more interaction with your business. You've had, I'm sure, tell us, do people come back for second trips?
Yeah, it's really exciting. I've had so many repeat guests, so it's very exciting for me. I'm about to open up Peru next year and I have a list of, so that's really exciting. I mean, it is luxury travel because we stay in beautiful places, but it's like down to earth luxury travel. Like we're going to stay in nice places, but we are resilient and we're open-minded, and so it's interesting. I have hired mentors in the travel business to help me, and two things that they told me that I'm could potentially be doing wrong is, number one, I don't have a join now button. People have to go through additional steps to join, and that may deter people who otherwise would want to join. But as you said, like I'm really okay with that, because the people who are really attracted to it, they will take this, and I mean, the trips have been selling out, so I'm really grateful for that. But I would rather have a smaller, there's still room in Morocco, but I'd rather have a smaller group with a wonderful spirit than, a bigger mismatch, which could, just cause more discomfort for everyone. And the other thing they told me is most people don't go in advance and scout out the place because it's cost prohibitive and it's not worth the time that you put into it. But it makes me feel calmer and it makes me more excited. And then it makes me feel more confident putting out the trip. And, eventually I also will do trips for private groups, and eventually I'll have other people host for me because I can't go on every single trip, but not until an itinerary is exactly the way it is. But it makes me really confident to lead with my heart open that this is the experience we're creating together, and to welcome everybody confidently, because it is a lot to take a group. It is
So much,
yeah.
So much.
Yeah.
And I think that luxury is I want to circle back to that. Luxury is such an interesting term too, right? Because it could be luxurious to have time for connection or for community. And it could be luxurious to find someone who really understands what would make a good experience for you. Like I I may have misspoken in the sense of like a super high-end expensive hotel, but luxury is a state of mind, really, more than
You're
anything.
absolutely right. You are.
I love that.
Although some of my women, I went in Tuscany. I originally wanted to stay in an agritourism, a farm renovate, and they're like, if there's no air conditioning, forget it.
Well,
You could potentially.
that's menopause for you, if I may.
I understand. I understand. So yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
yeah, I love it. Well, we're kind of starting to wind down our time, and oh my gosh, it has totally flown by. I'm curious about when you think about other clinicians that may be in, I call them shower downloads, but if you will, the driving or shower download or that in between inflection time when an idea is taking root. Do you have any advice for them? Because I really see how much success is finding you, and you have some wonderful connections that are starting to acknowledge your work at a physician in a national, even international level through podcasting, interviews, and articles. Your trips are becoming celebrated. The waiting lists are growing, which is, of course, all the things that you imagined. What would you say to you when you were just starting? What's some advice you might offer someone? It may not have anything to do with travel, but what is something you might offer another clinician or person who's making a pivot from a pretty big career?
Well, I can pass on some advice that was given to me that I thought was really great advice, because I may think through my head what is a good fit and what would be the next step rationally. And somebody said to me, follow the energy. Follow the energy. If it energizes you and it lifts you higher, then that's the path to go. And that was the greatest thing anybody ever said to me, because this takes so much work, but honestly, I'm pulled to it. I'm pulled to it, as opposed to other chores where you kind of make yourself do it. I have to sometimes make myself not do it because I can do it, all the time. I feel very pulled to it. So I think it would just be to notice what energizes you and what lights you up. And when you have an idea and it kind of gets you excited and gets you feeling hopeful and, like a kid again, to me, those are the ideas to continue forward.
A sense of awe, curiosity, wonder,
Yeah.
go where the energy pulls you.
Energy. Yeah. Like, wow. Like when time flies, when time flies researching about this, and when I start to get more and more ideas, because it's all building, it's like an energy that builds off of each other.
Love it.
When that happens for me, I know I'm on the right path. I know that's the way to go. And then, that mantra, and I'm not usually a poetry person, but that poem really roots me in the fact that this is my one shot that I know of, and I have agency over this life. And how do I want it to be? Most of us go into medicine with this unsaid social contract that we're going to work so hard and this is going to happen and then we're going to have this life. And then some people do. And and then if it feels like it's not, it doesn't mean it was a wrong decision or a dead end or we're stuck. It means, it just, for me, means to open up that space again for new ideas to percolate. It may combine things in all sorts of different ways. I see incredible people doing incredible things all over the place. And the other advice I would say, because you've been so deeply helpful to me, is to find community and mentorship, because it's a hard road and it kind of goes against the grain that we've been brought up in. And sometimes some things are discouraging. It's like, yay, oh no, yay. It's like this up and down thing. So to find, I have my friend Nadine, she's a physician who runs food and wine trips. And I so appreciate my relationship with her, and I appreciate my relationship with you and with all the other people that are giving me love and support, and then I can return it to them, that we're in this together. And just that whole process, even if I hope my company goes where I want it to go, but it really is the journey, not the end goal. So to have these relationships in the journey has been so fulfilling to me. So I'm really grateful to you and to all the people I've met along.
Well, there's so many points of intersection, but again, you can't help but come back to the value of gratitude and the transformative power of curiosity, and living in a state of curiosity, gratitude, awe. It actually, I think it magnetizes people to our work. And that is a very subtle statement on my side, but you radiate that and you embody that. I 100% agree in my observations, just seeing the photos and feeling the reviews of people as they come in, that power has this incredible capacity, or travel has this incredible power to heal and transform, not just the people who are on the trip, but your life in its own trajectory as well. And because you couldn't do what you're doing without people coming into connection with it. In an era where we are increasingly digital and intersections with spaces where there's non-human interaction or impersonal interaction or even malignant energy that comes from various spaces, these affinity circles where we're identifying our deeper values and creating space for connection, I think will be increasingly valuable and not replaceable with literally anything else. Like, these things will never lose their value. And I think that's incredibly wise and insightful of you to cultivate and lean into experiences that give people that outcome. So people can find you. I am certain that after listening to this podcast, you at least want to look at her website and learn about upcoming trips and possibilities. So how do people?
So it's LH Adventure Travel. The LH is for lifestyle health, based on lifestyle medicine. So it's lhadventuretravel.com, or on Facebook. I post mainly on my personal page, Stacey Funt, or my business page, lhadventuretravel.com. And I'm so happy to connect with anybody. So thanks so much for having me.
Thank you, Stacey. And here's to the incredible power of nature, community, and travel, all combined into one. And I sincerely hope everyone, you check out the show notes and the links to learn more about Stacey's beautiful company, LH Adventure Travel. And until next time, everyone, thank you for being here.